rap music taught me everything about design and fashion. It was this sampling DIY aesthetic that like spoke to me like at a very young age, where you could take something from here that didn't really belong with something here, but somehow you could put them together and make them work. So when you design clothing, when you make beats, you're editing, you're taking pieces and putting them together. And I feel like I'm good at that.
Microphone check, 1 2. What is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service. Here we are again at the end of the rainbow. Today's guest, Real Bad Man, is an artist who has caught my attention in recent years because he checks two important boxes for what I typically gravitate to in music. The first box being that I'm an album guy. I don't listen to singles often, and when I do, it's often not more than a couple of spins. I simply prefer to hear an artist try and give me a thoughtfully curated set of messaging, feelings, vibes, whatever. And when it comes to the type of albums I prefer, I'm a cohesiveness whore. I love it when an album has a consistent musical identity with logical sequencing and transitions that make the experience flow seamlessly from top to bottom. It's for these reasons that Real Bad Man has impressed me, because his respect for the album format is clear, creating cohesive full-length musical experiences with the likes of Boldy James, ZelooperZ, Pink Siifu, Lukah, Willie the Kid, and more. But as you will soon find out if you listen on, there's more to the Real Bad Man creative arc than meets the eye. In today's episode, the LA-based producer Enigma delves into his unique multidisciplinary journey from art director at places like Stussy to prolific producer, his love for the album format, that trademark Badman sound, working with Boldy James, and much more. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth artist interviews, album reviews, and general rap commentary on the best that the underground rap scene has to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. Real Bad Man, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very good, yeah. As I was doing the prep for this interview, I feel like I was pretty fascinated by some of the bits of your background that I wasn't really familiar with at all, because like
Yeah.
most people, at least listening to this episode, I was introduced to you strictly through your music as Real Bad Man.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited to kind of get into this a bit more and just talk about your music, especially this latest record with Boldy. That's dope.
Cool.
So yeah, when I first encountered your music, one of the things early on that I was very impressed with, I think, because Real Bad Boldy was my first introduction.
Yeah.
I was right off the bat pretty impressed with the presentation of it and the sound of just how polished it was. And obviously, as someone who wasn't is just getting into an artist, like I look at those things very closely, where I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let me make. you're judging books by its cover, like that's what we
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
I was like, damn, this is a beautiful artwork. This seems
Yeah.
very like. And then I was just asking like Real Bad Man. My first question was like, is this some like really old like kind of producer that maybe I'm not familiar with? Because I'm like I'm
Yeah.
only 30 now, which I
Yeah.
think is still young. But I was
Yeah.
like, maybe I'm just not familiar, and this is some established name I'm just completely
Yeah.
out of the loop on. And then as I learned, not only are you a producer, your artistry is like fully multi-medium, and your career has taken obviously very interesting turns outside of just like creating music, including
Yeah.
like design work in the fashion world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to understand, like, could you tell us a bit more about how the Real Bad Man kind of like artistic project came to be in terms of it being like a clothing brand as well as the
Yeah. Yeah.
music side of it as Real Bad Man?
So it started at, I mean, we could go way back, but I think like, I guess for this, it started with the brand part first. So the brand sort of started when I was like, hey, I'm done doing music. So I've done music my whole life. I was DJing, in middle school, and have like a very like, love for music, love for the art form. I feel like rap music taught me everything about design and fashion. It was this sampling DIY aesthetic that like spoke to me like at a very young age, where you could take something from here that didn't really belong with something here, but somehow you could put them together and make them work. So I, had bands and I put out records and I produced, but I went to film school and I sort of ended up in this career kind of at Stussy as like an art director for 10 years doing like graphics. So I had all these connections with artists that I worked with, like like graphic designer artists, fine artists, comic book artists. Um, and there I got to do a lot of really cool things. This is a very long-winded. There, a lot of this has actually come up this week, so that it's like fresh in my mind. But like while I was at Stussy, there was a lot of projects that I did that were music based. Like there's a Stussy Dilla documentary
Mm.
that I directed. All the Dilla collaborations with Stussy, like I did. There's a big Yo MTV Raps thing that Stussy did with a documentary, that I directed and wrote. So I always brought music with me wherever I went. And then I had my band Pollen, and if you kind of dig into Pollen, you'll see there's a song with Freddie Gibbs, there's a song with Rock Marciano, there's like some unreleased stuff with like Guilty Simpson and Master Ace. There's like, it's always been part of my thing, but I never was able to connect it all.
Right.
So after, I was like, Pollen's done. Like, there's three of us in Pollen, and really on the last album, it was really just two of us. It was Genevieve, the singer, and I. And she has her band Knower, and she does her solo stuff on Brain Feeder. And she was doing that, and I had this kind of career as a designer, creative director, art director. And I was like, all right, I'm done making music. I don't want to make music anymore. But I had to do something to express myself. And I wanted to, I wanted to do something, because as an art director for brands like Stussy and Undefeated, for the most part, there's a chain of command. And even if I love something, it might not make it through as a design,
Right.
because it might not sell, or I don't know about that. And everyone comes to kind of a group decision. But I wanted to do something where I could do whatever the fuck I want. And like, no one was going to say, don't do that. I don't think that's going to sell. Or I don't know about that. So that's how Real Bad Man started. I wanted to make stuff that like I wanted to make. And I had a creative partner who was an illustrator who drew the Real Bad Boldy cover,
Mm.
Noah, who I worked with at Stussy, and he's now the art director at Stussy, and he was like, we were on the same page for a lot of it, but it was sort of my vision of like, hey, this is what I want to do, and we have a lot of similar reference points, so it was there was a lot of unspoken stuff of like, hey, let's do this, and he would just go off and do it, and it would be great. Which is like very special, similar to how artists work with producers. Like when you have like a connection, and it's really easy to work with, and it's very rewarding to work with someone who like you both get each other and you're on the same page. So Real Bad Man, the clothing brand, started, and because of this love of music and this idea of I could do whatever the fuck I want, like the first season I was like, oh, what if I did like a little 7-inch, like a promo that's sent with the clothing to the stores. We were in we were in really good stores, so it'd be like Dover Street and some of the Supreme stores and
Nice.
Union and Good Hood, and so the clothing would arrive with a few pieces of this vinyl that's stamped. No one was going to know what was on it beforehand. It would just get sent there. So the first season, I want, or for all of the ones we did these 7 inches for, we did these like promo 7 inches, and they were all themed with the clothing. Meaning, the first season was like very heavy, like krautrock, like bootleg T-shirt influence. So the idea was to give uh, the people who were doing the music on the 7 inch very specific songs to like sample or to do stuff with. So I got Edon to do Vitamin C by Can and flip it and rap over it. Edon's one of my favorites. He's a producer and he's a rapper and he's great at both. Um, we had the B side was these guys out of Japan called Bim One who did this sort of like digital reggae thing, and it was like I gave them a very specific like krautrock synth song to like flip. Um, and then for season 2, there aren't very many Edons of the world who can do both great.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's a very, very
yeah.
short list.
um, and who'd be down to do it like, hey, we're doing this. It's going to come out as a 7 inch, it's no one's ever going to really know about it. Like, I wanted it to be this like artifact that exists that people will discover in the future and be like, holy shit, Edon rapping over Vitamin C. That's crazy. Like, I want that. And that goes back to how I discovered music growing up and when I was DJing and like, before the internet, where you would just discover something that you didn't know existed, but it was like the dopest thing you'd ever heard, So I try to carry that with me like throughout like everything I do with like the label and the brand. But then season 2 was all around drugs, and my idea was to like sample sort of songs that were kind of from like drug records, like records where like the artist did a lot of drugs to record it, as like, and then resample that and put that in, and then wanted to flip like a sample from the Chronic and kind of like redo stuff and I was like, there's no one like I only have a set amount of time to do these projects before the clothing comes out and get the vinyl pressed. And so eventually I was like, fuck, I better just make the beats, because it's going to be a lot harder to find a producer and then find an artist like and do that 3 times for like a 3
Yeah,
track.
for sure.
So I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it myself. I got one. I got Huey Briss was a rapper, and he did like sort of this flip of the Chronic, and he had a producer that he worked with who was able to kind of like do everything with my direction. Like, hey, take the song, flip it, do a song in this, that nods to this Dre song. But then the other 2 was doing like a remake of Psycho Dwarf by the Beatnuts and giving it to Mayhem Loren to do. And then the other one was kind of an original. It wasn't a concept, but it was taking like a sample from sort of like a drugged album, like stoned album, and then making a beat, and then Logi rapped over it, and it was cool. And I was like, oh, this is really fun. There's a concept. I get to produce again. I get to work with rappers that I think are cool, that I like, who are new to me, people I hadn't worked with, and then it just kept going. The 3rd season was the theme was comedy, and there's a song with Boldy James and Alchemist rapping, and Al was like, "Hey, I'm with Boldy. Can I put him on the song?" And I was like, "Cool." I think it was when they're recording Boldface and Prez T and Shine. It was that time, and I didn't know Boldy before then. And then the other side was Blue and Large Professor, and Exile scratched on it, and both beats were beats that I did, and that was great too. It was like, this is really cool. And then from there, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna start making music again, and kind of jumped in, and that was when I kind of started to send stuff to Boldy, and he liked the stuff I was sending and was like, hey, I'm going to the studio, send me stuff. And that was kind of the beginning of Real Bad Boldy. We didn't, well, a lot of the stuff back then, I had the idea of doing the On High Alert volumes kind of first. So I was just collecting songs. I would hit up people and send beats out, and kind of like without a full plan besides, hey, I'm just going to do a bunch of songs and I'm going to do these little comps. And then I just ended up with a lot of Boldy songs. and and the my distributor was like, "Wait, you have all these Boldy songs?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have like I don't know, there's probably like 15." And he was like, "Why don't you put out an album?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what." He was like, "Just put out an album now. Like just figure out what you want on the album and do it." And um so that's how kind of big Real Bad Boldy kind of came about, was just like, "Hey, I have all these songs that we've been recording. Um, do they work as an album?" And I kind of put them together, and a few songs were mixed and didn't make the record. Like I like over recording. I like having a lot.
And then
And
pare down from there. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's sort of why, like, uh, when people like the Boldy records, there's a lot that we don't use. So I try
Hmm.
to use the songs that like I like the most, and then Boldy likes as well. But for the most part, like I sort of curate what the album sounds like, send it to him, and he's like, "Cool," like, or make my vocals loud. There'll be notes, but for the most part, like he lets me like take the lead on like sequencing and what songs we want to use, and then but yeah, we don't, even with the latest album, like we didn't set out to make a 13 song album. We just we're always recording, and it's like, okay, this feels like an album. And once we start to like get pieces of an album, that's when I'll be like, we need a song like this. Like I'm gonna try to make something because I feel like it's missing this type of
Hmm.
thing. And then songs drop out and we get added, and really it ends up being like most of the most recent songs are the album. Like the songs that are left over from each of the albums that kind of get put into the pot, like typically end up dropping out. Like
Right.
I just maybe it's just because I've heard them and they weren't good enough for the first one, they weren't good enough for the second one. So there's like a big folder of like Boldy songs that like have never that are mixed that have never like come out from like.
Right. And the way, and especially I can just understand most people who fuck with Boldy have seen this year and last year. Like
Yeah,
he never stops working, so I don't feel like that
yeah.
folder's small. I don't think
I
it's
don't know. I mean, I do think uh, I can only speak for myself, but I would guess like a lot of those producers are, especially if they've only worked with Boldy once, like they're putting out the songs they did with him.
Oh,
I doubt
interesting.
that
Okay.
there's like tons of leftovers. Maybe like a song with a verse, but like some songs we have aren't finished. It'll just be a verse, but like
Hmm.
um, I mean, we've been working on music for like I don't know, Real Bad Boldy came out in what probably since we've been probably working since 2019. Conversational Pieces was done probably a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, it could have come out last year. Um, it wouldn't have had the Conway feature on it, but like everything else was pretty much done. I think Conway and LP were like the last bits,
Mm.
but like his schedule was kind of stacked last year, and there was like there's less releases. I didn't think there was gonna be six this year. Like I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
we're gonna release in May. Like we need some time to like videos and that kind of stuff. And there's just like I didn't realize it was that stacked, or else I would have just put it out last year.
Mm. And so like there's a lot you mentioned there that I want to
Yeah,
follow up on, I guess. The part that's interesting is like, so you're saying how basically you were doing these 7 inches, you realized, okay, boom, I kind of need, it makes more sense if I just produce. I've been making
yeah,
music my whole life. I was in this band, Paul, and like you've
yeah,
been making music for a
yeah.
while. But I'm curious, like, what was the spark to go from, okay, I'll produce like these 7 inches to being like, now I'm gonna start, as you have since then, putting out full albums with so many different artists. Like you're quite prolific. Not only just
Yeah,
I've decided to dabble again. So like
yeah.
what sparked you to go like this hard into it?
I really like making music. I mean, like I like making albums. I like albums. Um, and I like the process of starting something and finishing it, and sort of creating the packaging, the artwork, like visualizing it. Like I like all of that, and I sort of like saw like a path, like, oh, okay, like the Boldy, like when the Boldy record came out, I was already working on Pink Siifu. There was a stove, the unreleased Stove God record that I have was supposed to come out right after.
Hmm.
Real Bad Boldy. That was like the next thing. Um, but it ended up being Siifu. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like I don't know. I want to say it was a plan. It was a little bit of a plan of like, hey, I'm gonna hit him with this and then this and then this to kind of just get momentum going because I like putting out records. I like working with artists. Like I like hearing artists and being like, I want to work on something. Like I know what to give that person, or I know what kind of beats I could make for them. And that's really fun to me. The idea of like curating and editing, like it's how my brain works. It's like I'm good at editing. I'm good at editing. I know that. That's when you design clothing, when you make beats, you're editing. You're taking pieces and putting them together. And I feel like I'm good at that. So,
Yeah, that part is fascinating here. You're just talking about is like I'm curious because like I can relate to your kind of path in just this narrow sense, which I'm sure lots of people is not unique,
yeah.
that like I have a 9 to 5 job
Yeah.
that I go to work every day.
Yeah.
And then on the side, I've been trying to build this podcast since
Yeah.
2020. You have, I understand, like the design work is like in terms of time is like the main time, like that's how much that's mostly what your time's going to,
I
not the
mean,
music.
yeah, I am lucky that, and maybe it's because I'm older, like I'm way more established. So what I do for a living, is sort of it's stressful and time consuming, but like there's a whole team that I work with.
Hmm.
So, you know, I don't always have tons of free time to work on music, but like music comes the most natural to me. So I could come home and work on music. I think the ability to work on music anywhere in the world has helped me make music as Real Bad Man. When I had my band and was doing stuff with Pollen, we had Pro Tools and live stuff.
Hmm.
It was just like it was you turn on the SP 1200 and it takes 4 minutes to start, and then you have to take the record and you have to play it into the sampler and like I don't have time like that. Like I can put the record and play it into my computer, sample something, start chopping it up, like and make something that I like or like a sketch of it really quickly. It's
Hmm.
also I've been doing this for 30 years. So like I know what I like and I know how to do it. Um it helps me move fast. Um there's I have I have some albums coming out later in this year where I was a lot more like we recorded once a week and there's live players on it and it was a bigger like undertaking. Um
Hmm.
and it's a like a very rewarding process and the album I think is really good uh because of it. But yeah, I have a pretty good balance of stuff, and because you can kind of make music anywhere, I can work on stuff when I'm not here in my studio, when I'm at like the office, or if I'm traveling for work. Like, I like working with headphones and like creating. I like moving fast and
Hmm.
uh, kind of having the freedom to make stuff like kind of anywhere. Um, but
Yeah.
but at the same time, I tinker. So once someone records to something, and this is something that I've run into as like sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. If I give someone a beat and they rap to it, that beat's not done. Like I'm giving like a sketch, and once I get the vocals back, then I really like dive into the song and I add like maybe I add a bass line, maybe I bring in someone to play horns, maybe I change out the drums to the because I don't like the sounds. Like maybe I like to tinker, and I think I kind of make stuff in not parts, but like there's like I have the first beat, and then once it's I guess once I get vocals back, I kind of can see the song a little better,
Right.
dropouts and change ups and all that stuff. So, um, I guess that because I have a work life too, like that makes it easier. I can start a project, get vocals or record the vocals here, and then just kind of work on them over time. I work fast, but then I also take my time to finish stuff.
Yeah,
So
no, that's a good balance.
like
That's definitely a
hurry
good
and
balance.
then get slow to finish it. So
And
um
also what makes your like kind of two main pursuits here, like design and music, interesting is that I imagine they both kind of inspire and inform one another. So it's not like you're, like I said, like my experience, like I what I do in my day job doesn't relate to the pot like anything I'm
right,
doing
right, right.
here. Whereas
Yeah, yeah.
like it's actually can be it's more of like you're balancing two isolated things. How do you
Yeah.
make time for it? Whereas I would imagine like some of the juice you get from working on a
Yeah, yeah.
great design, like that's a pretty interesting and I would say rewarding kind of setup you have currently.
Yeah, and I've made a lot of content for brands, like, and I've done the music for most of them. So like, it doesn't say produced by a Real Bad Man, but like, you know, uh I did a thing for Lululemon recently, and we used like I made the music for it. Like no one knows. It's
Hmm.
I do keep the world somewhat separate. They sometimes cross, but most of the time they do not. Um,
Interesting.
it's just like this. I don't need them or want them necessarily to cross. Um, but yeah, like besides design, like our agency does like campaigns. So like we're shooting stuff and editing, and I think that there's a lot of the times I just like I can make the music just as good as anyone else. So I might as well just make the music, like, and it's a way for me to do music, like for a purpose, and I like doing music for a purpose.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to your point about which is definitely one of the things I've appreciated so much about your approach to music is that you appreciate albums. And I think
Yeah.
that goes back to having a purpose because like the way I listen to music, I don't begrudge anybody who feels otherwise, but
Yeah.
I have very little interest. Even the artists that I think are like literally about the best all time, if they have a
Yeah.
single out, I'll listen to the single once. I
Yeah.
will try to actually avoid it. And then for
Yeah.
artists that I don't really know or aren't like that elite, I'll just
Yeah.
be like, okay, cool. I'll just good to know they have an album coming out. I'll wait for
Yeah.
the album because I don't listen to singles. I listen to
Yeah.
albums. That's just how I
Yeah.
queue up my day of music. It's just
Yeah.
not as interesting because I wanna get something. I wanna get an experience. I wanna get some kind
Yeah.
feel that purpose, like you said,
Yeah. And
and
we
get
and
that.
I like I don't mix my own stuff. Like I have that's another reason I'm able to do so much
Mm,
stuff. Like I have a little team that I go back to, that are like, hey, I like there's two guys I use that mix my stuff, and when it's ready, like we start mixing, and it's a process of back and forth, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna switch out the snare on this. I don't like how it sounds, or like once it's mixed, and it is a process, but you know, I can listen to a song in my studio or in the car and give notes on it. I don't have to be in the room because they're not even here. Like they
hmm.
don't like one guy's in Memphis and the other guy's in South Africa. So, we get on Zooms or FaceTime and go through it with the notes, but like, I like having a like just like in my sort of day job of, in the design and creative world, like there's a team, like I'm not building right now. I'm working on something where we need like 3D models made. I'm not doing the 3D models.
Hmm.
I bring in a 3D modeler that's really good and give notes and direction and wait for them to, it takes 8 hours to like build something for me to look at. And during those 8 hours, like I could be making beats. I could be, I'm waiting to get stuff back. And I think, when you have a system and a support team and, collaborators that you trust, like, it makes the process more rewarding, but it also makes it easier to like shoot, like aim higher.
Hmm.
'Cause it's like I know who's gonna mix this. I don't have to find, I have someone that I've worked with now on 5 albums that understands what I like, and you know, so and I like working with people that are better than me at things. Like I'm not good at mixing, so I'm gonna work with someone who's better because they're gonna make the album sound better. You know?
Yeah. Exactly. And so digging into your sound more specifically, like
Yeah.
another constant trademark with you is that I feel like you have this really established kind of blueprint or approach to your beats that like have this like really nice kind of jazzy noir neo boom bap. These are terms that I
Yeah.
don't know what they
Yeah.
necessarily mean all the time, but I
Yeah.
get what people say when they describe your music, and I really
Yeah.
do fuck with it. And I'm wondering, like, how did you develop this signature sound, and like, how would you, in your mind, even characterize it in your own words?
I mean, I studied noir in film school. Like I'm a big fan of like darker atmospheric music. Like I I grew up loving rap music. Eventually, I really got into like the Portisheads and the Massive Attacks, which kind of influenced me doing.
Pollen.
Um, and those records all have a lot of atmosphere. So I like atmosphere. I like funk and soul, and I think like that's what I gravitate towards. I love drum breaks. So if you put all that shit together, it ends up sounding like the stuff I make. And I do think it's like I use techniques of sort of I don't know. I don't like the term boom bap, but I know what like my drums are dustier are dusty.
They
I feel
are,
like
yeah.
that's the boom bap thing, but I don't program like I did back then. So like when I listen to like 90s stuff, you can unless it's a loop, the drums are sort of they don't sound the same, but like they have the same like
Yeah, they
feeling.
have like that
Yeah.
programmatic
Yeah,
feeling. And
yeah.
yeah, and there's definitely it's not a negative because some of that is
Yeah.
actually very endearing to me or just like
Yeah.
but it's a
And then
different vibe.
and
Yeah.
then Premier and Pete Rock and Dilla like had swing that was like that really stood out, which makes them like amazing. Um, but I think like making that kind of music on modern equipment makes it modern. So I'm trying to I try to not I don't make music the way I did when I was making music with Pollen and even before that with like we haven't talked about it, but like I put out rap stuff before Pollen, and I used an SP, and there was a time where I used like an MPC. I don't make music in using those devices anymore. Um, and people that do, like, it blows my mind how they still work on that because they've done it for so long that they're masters of it. And I think I put it down and I picked up, Ableton and like just a keyboard and I do it all in the computer.
Mm.
um and I'm able to work faster and combine sounds that like I wouldn't be able to do using that old equipment. I feel like the tools are wider. They're more vast than they were back then, and I use those to my advantage. um but yeah, but I know I have like my stuff I don't know if someone threw all my songs into AI, like it would say like, oh, they're all the same chord progression, or like they use like these are the common notes that your ear gravitate towards. And I'm sure there's a lot of like overlap because I tend to like work in minor chords. It tends to be very like atmospheric. I like bass lines that move, that aren't just like notes that like are on the kick, like um and I fought this a lot, like the earlier like all the earlier records of like, don't play anything live, just use samples and records, and don't like don't make it too alternative, or don't because I did that with Pollen. Like there's a lot that it was a band, so we played, and like I wanted this to like, for Real Bad Man when I first started, I wanted to be like I tried to follow a code, like a very strict code of like not playing anything live. Like even though my instincts were like, oh, just play that bass line. Like no, like don't do it. Don't make it too like different. Make it as straightforward like rap as possible. And I've gone away I've gone away from that a little bit. I'm definitely going away from that like with the next couple releases. I've just I'm over following that rule. If it
Hmm.
sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like on that. Speaking of like live instrumentation, like the way that you collaborated with those jazz musicians on that Lukah record, I had Lukah on like after the following
Yeah,
that
yeah,
release last year,
yeah,
and that was like truly. I told him then like that was my favorite stuff you had put out, and I just felt like the production on that shit was just so fucking unique. Like there's a few beats like in particular like the cleansing and
yeah,
the burial that are like legitimately just marvelous. Like they're just so beautiful and they're also just like completely alien to anything else I've heard in so long in hip hop. Like it's just wild, but still it feels hip hop. Like it's not like
yeah,
some out there shit like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
but it's just so it was so rich in how you blended all these people collaborating with you, which was definitely very unique for you at the time.
Yeah, yeah. It was like the Luca record was very different from the stuff I had done before. Um, there is like live horns on a lot of stuff that I've done.
Hmm.
Um, but the Luca record was like it was such a concept record that came from Luca. I wasn't like, hey, let's do this concept record. Like it was his idea, and he really like sort of almost like wrote the script. Like he took the beats and like wrote this like story and was or he was able to take what what I made and like make it into something that like made it like linear and made sense and created this world. And then as we were like, like I'm a tinkerer, like I said, like an editor. So when we were starting to like after I got the vocals back, I kept like adding stuff and he'd be like, "Oh, I liked it better before." like
Hmm.
I was like, I gave you a loop with no drums because like we would have these like Zoom calls where I would just like open my Ableton and I had all these like loops. It would be like 30 loops in a row, like all to the same BPM. They were all like 8-bar loops. And he'd be like, I want that one, that one, that one, that one. I'm gonna start writing to them. But they were just loops. They had nothing else to them. So once he recorded, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start adding stuff, and he'd be like, I'd send it back, and he'd be like, oh, I liked it better before. But I think bringing in other musicians um, kind of did something else besides adding drums. So some of those songs, like I didn't add drums, I added horns, or I
Hmm.
added a guitar player, and like I wanted the album to feel like a celebration. I wanted to have you know collaborators. I'm like into curating and making something that people are like, oh shit. So it was like, hey, this song, like, and it didn't get PR'd in a way where I don't know if that many people knew, but like the song with Woods has like Preston Crump, who played on all the Outcast records, like all the big ones. It has Adrian Utley, who was Portishead's guitar player, and it has Shabaka like
And
playing.
you feel it,
Yeah,
and it
but
was
like the
also like
combo of that group is like blows my
it's
mind that like
legendary. Like
yeah,
it's
it's like
literally
imagine if they
legendary. Yeah.
all started a band, like that. It was like creating this like and they all sent me stuff that was almost like this like Adrian sent me just 5 tracks of like wild guitar playing and was like do whatever you want with it. So like I could kind of use it as a sample, you know,
Hmm.
use moments where he plays and then I chop this part. Um, and kind of with the bass too. Sometimes I played the bass and then I sent it to Preston and then he kind of I was like just make it better or make it funkier or like choose different notes and like Shabaka was in LA because they played Coachella, his band Comet is Coming. So he was like, I'm gonna be in LA for this week. And he was like staying in Venice like 10 minutes from me. And I was like, I'll just come pick you up and we'll go to the studio, we'll record. And um like we were just driving around and he was like, oh, I just did some stuff with like Lucid and it was like it was all kind of connected. It was really cool.
Hmm.
And like I was like Andre 3000 lives like in Venice and like you'd see him playing flute like just around like
That's
um
awesome.
and I was like, "Oh, like do you know Andre cuz he's like he lives like right over here." And he was like he was like, "Yeah, I just played on something. He was in London." So it was like I don't know, it was just like fun, you know, being in a like this wide circle of like people he was like collaborating with, and I think it made, I don't know, it made the Lukah record uh feel more special than it already was. It like took it up a notch to have like these like world class collaborators that collaborate with like, like my favorite artists as well.
Agreed. And
All on the
I
same page. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like I heard him through this. It was like I was a fan of Sons of Kemet. Like that
mhm,
was like that those
unbelievable.
records were great. And I was, I'm a fan of music, and I'm, I don't own like I don't really, I listen to rap, like I listen to what's out there, but I listen to a lot of other stuff too, and that probably ends up influencing like collaborators and people like I want to work with, and I will, I don't know, trying to, I don't know, expand who I work with. Like the record that is going to come out next for me, probably end of summer, is with an artist named Toby, who's from Canada. Do you know Toby?
Oh shit. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, we have a record, and it's like it's a soulful, funky, like it's like a beautiful record, which I've never been able to say about like the Luca record's beautiful,
But not in
like,
like I know what you mean. It's a
but
different kind
like
of
this is like
beautiful.
like the music is like everything. There's a lot of like almost more than half of it. Everything's played, but like yeah, it's like a record. I've said this a few times. It's like a record my wife would play,
It's like
and she,
it's like a sweet sounding, right? It's like
yeah, it's
melodically
sweet,
sweet.
it's funky, it's like, it's Toby sings on songs and raps, and it's like he's someone else that like we worked together a lot, like very close on this record. Everything was recorded either here at the other studio, and uh it's been a very rewarding collaboration, and I'm very excited to put out the record. It was supposed to actually come out in June, but we're waiting on features. So
Hmm.
once the features are in, we could put out the record. The record's all mixed except for like the two songs that are supposed to have features on it. So
Nice, nice. And you've worked with a myriad of different artists over the years and have who have very different styles that are very unique in their own right. And I
yeah.
wonder like how would you characterize the type of collaborator that you gravitate to, who you feel you work best with? Is it the type of is it like their type of subject matter, like flow, vocal tone, like that you feel is a
Uh,
good fit on your beats?
I mean, I feel like they need to have emotion. I feel like emotion's a big part of it because I have been thinking about that recently. Um, because I've read a few of the like reviews about the Boldy record, and they were like, "This is his most emotional song," and I was like, "Huh." Like I never thought of it that way, but like Luca's very emotional in his raps. And I'm not gonna say which ones, but albums in my catalog that I don't love, that I don't go back to, are the ones that are just kind of like, eh, like they're a good rapper. This song is totally fine, but it's not doing anything beyond like just doing a song.
Hmm.
And I think I like artists that have a point of view, that have something to say, or artists that like are masters of like the word, and like can like, they have to have something sort of special or interesting. Um, but yeah, like with Toby, I heard his last record, Panic, and I like the first song is that like soul record sample, and I was like, who is this? Like this is rad. And I like looked him up, and I was like, oh shit, he DM'd me like a year ago.
That's a
And
good
I was
feeling.
like, fuck, why did, like it wasn't about like it was like a photo. It was like him wearing some Real Bad Man. It wasn't like, hey, like, and I was like, oh, I like, so he'll know who I am at least. So I was just like, yo, I really like this record. Like it's real, like when a record gets me, I always like go on and try to find that person and be like, oh, like can I, like, I like some, there's something about it. And his music is very like emotional. He's like, I don't know, the record we made, I feel like is like for right now, like sort of like what's going on in the world. Like he's able to like touch on stuff without being preachy, without it being like a, political. It's not
Hmm.
that. It's like it's still like fun, but like he speaks his mind, and like, you know says some shit like that's that's needed to be said out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No, that's really exciting. I gotta tap into him more because I've listened to a bit of his music, but
yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be a really interesting collab. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I don't think any like it's uh because I hadn't been familiar with him before that record, and there was like a song with Mavi on it, and I think Kenny Mason's on it, and I was like, oh, like this is cool, like, and that's kind of like what got me, and I think that's sort of like, when people put features on records, like I know why it's important,
Hmm.
like it's important, like I found out about Lukah because he had that song with Boldy, and I was like, "Who is this?" Like, and I liked the artwork, and I heard the song, and I was like, "Oh, like this is cool." A lot of I, that's part of collaborating. That's why features are good. Like
Oh no,
if it
it's such a real thing.
yeah
The first time I had Luca on was 2021, and he was about to drop Why Luca. Well, actually, not about to. It was actually, quite a while after. But he
yeah
was gonna drop next Why Look Up, and he had that's the Boldy track.
yeah
That was the
yeah
first
yeah
single, and he had sent it to me like just as an early listen, but just that song. And it's cool. Like I at that point I was pretty new to his music and being like, holy
yeah
shit, I feel like I found like I there's this artist that from Memphis, like
yeah
this is the net. This guy's the one. I've been so high on him for a reason.
yeah
And when I heard he got a song with Boldy, I'm like, oh, he's not only really dope, but he's making
yeah
moves. And if you
yeah
see
yeah
like the record he's got coming out with Static is gonna be crazy. And I'll just say for people listening, there's some names on that. You're gonna be like, what
yeah
the fuck? And good for him.
yeah. It's
It
great. I
matters.
texted him today. I was like, "Congratulations!" Like, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of Masters of Word, let's get into this conversational pieces record with Boldy.
Okay.
You guys have collaborated a handful of times now
Yeah.
and have yielded some really cool results. Like, why do you think you two have such a strong creative chemistry?
I mean, I think repetition has a lot to do with it. Being able to work with someone over and over again. I I think we genuinely like each other. I think that also has a lot to do with it. I think really early on, I think the first sort of batch of beats that I sent him, he he was like he's like, people don't always send me beats I like, and he was like, I really like these, and that was sort of like the first beat I think he recorded to that he picked was Street Shit from Real Bad Boldy, and it was that batch that had that on it. And I don't know, it was very nice to hear that. Like, especially because I was really just starting out as doing like Real Bad Man as
Right.
like a thing, and he was like, "Oh, like, I know people send him beats, but," and he wasn't specific, but it made me feel like good, like, "Oh shit, like, all right, like, I know I like the beats I make, doesn't mean everyone else does, you know
Hmm.
what I mean?" So, but yeah, I think repetition. I think he trusts me. I trust him. Like, there's not on some songs. If I have an idea for the song, like I will tell him the song, like the idea. For example, "Bag It Up" on Conversational Pieces, the one that like where he's referencing all like the West Coast like rappers. Um, I was like, this sounds like a Dog Pound song to me. Like, do something that, like, I don't know, nods to that. And that was
Mm.
the idea. Like, he doesn't have to take my ideas, but like sometimes if I have something very like specific in mind, like for the beat, like this is how I see it, um, you know, uh, he'll take it and like kind of make it his own. So that was one of the things I think for uh for conversational pieces. Like, I was like, oh, like, to me this sounds like a day, like almost like How to Survive in South Central, like Ice Cube, like a day in the life. This is like, kind of like your life in Detroit. And what came out was like a reflective song about like where he is right now. So sometimes, and then other times I just send him beats, or we'll be in the studio and I'll play him stuff, and he'll be like, that one, like, come back around, like, it was like the first thing I played, and he was like, all right, I'm writing to this, and he just sat and wrote to it, and we recorded it 3 days in a row, because I was like, oh, like, I know that I think come back around is a special song, like, and uh so we recorded the first day, and he was like, I was like, hey, the second day I was like, can you do it again? Just like, give me a little more, like a little more. And he was like, okay, fine. And then the third day I was like, give me a little more, because I really just I wanted him to have the song in his head a little more. And he was like, I know what you want. I know what you want. And so we did it 3 days in a row. And the third day was the one that like made the record. But, you know, we work in a few different ways. Sometimes I just send him beats and he'll record. Um, Sometimes when he's in LA, we're together. Um, and then, yeah, so I guess those are the ways we usually record. So,
Yeah, it's repetition and trust. I definitely hear the trust in that.
yeah.
That's
And
really
I
good.
think like, especially after the first record, the reaction was good. And I think he said this a few times. He thinks I throw him like curveballs, like I give him like fun, like different stuff to rap to, and you can hear it on a few of the songs, like Triple Platinum. Like the beats really swung, and I was like, oh, I hope he raps to this because he's gonna do something really interesting. So I like giving him stuff that's like, you know, unique and stuff that I want to hear him on. Like he sounds good over like almost anything. And like his albums with Alchemist are like my favorite albums of his. But
Hmm.
like I think when we make records it sounds different, and I think the people that like the stuff we make like the records we make because it has a very specific sound that's different from a lot of the other stuff out there that he does.
And what would you say that like kind of like focuses when it comes to your beats with Boldy? Like, what do you think works best with his style?
Soul loops sound Boldy sounds great over soul loops. Um, and he does sound good over sort of like kind of atmospheric psychedelic stuff. Like his voice really cuts through, um, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, he sounds good over kind of anything. I don't know. Again, like if you put all of our songs in Chat GPT and say like analyze like what's the common thread between all these songs, like I'm sure they're kind of all in the same like keys, you know. But yeah, we there's the songs that are cut. Like some of them are like the tempo might be a little faster. It's just like I don't know the when putting together the records, there are songs that I like that get cut, but they just they don't work well with each other. And I do think with conversational pieces, like I sat with the record too long, um, and I probably would like if it was up to me, I probably would have cut a song or two, like in retrospect, now that it's
No,
out,
interesting.
or replaced it. Like there's like one or two songs where it was like, oh, like I really like this song, always really liked, but like maybe it didn't belong on the record, like maybe it belonged somewhere else, you know. So in retrospect, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have cut that.
Well, that's fair. But yeah, I mean, I think with Boldy and how you guys collaborate, I do think that sound, like you were saying you studied what do you say you studied noir in
Yeah,
film
like
school?
film. I've
Like,
studied film, and I made like noir. Like I was a big noir fan. So
yeah, and I feel like that kind of atmosphere definitely comes through in your beats. And I
yeah,
just think Boldy just naturally, I think it's even like implicitly his type of voice, which is obviously very like understated and however you want to describe it.
yeah,
It just sounds really at home when it's in this kind of atmosphere of being like kind of this smoky, like kind of psychedelic, atmospheric, thick, but still has these like I think you also have like a really good balance of groove in your beats that
yeah,
I just think it's a really good home for his voice and the way he kind of approaches things.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and for this record specifically, conversational pieces, like what makes this one a bit more kind of special in your eyes, or what makes it stand out between the other records that you guys have put out?
I mean, I think it's somewhat of a mix between the first two. Like we built upon it. Like I think the first one is very straightforward. Like for the most part, like it's pretty straightforward. And with Killing Nothing, like I wanted to make something that was like sinister and like dark and heavy. Um, and then I think Conversational Pieces is a little more psychedelic and trippy. Um, I mean, I yeah. So and I think there's bits of that in Real Bad Boldy, and there's bits of that in Killing Nothing. So I think it's kind of like a mix between the two. I think if I were to like judge the past records, like um, Real Bad Boldy has a lot of features on it, and then Killing Nothing has a bunch of features on it as well. Not a ton. We put them like right in the middle of the record.
Hmm.
Um, but I think Boldy doesn't need a lot of features, and I it's something that I've learned throughout doing these records that like the features are great on all the records, but like he doesn't need it. Like you don't like he could have, we could have just finished that song, and I think with Conversational Pieces, like it was the features are even are sparse. There's only
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more with Boldy. Like, especially that goes for mo. I'm just always
yeah
not really a big like I always kind of veer on the side of less features or more.
yeah
But
yeah
man, the ones you picked though on this record, I mean, you got a legend in LP
yeah
like on It Factor, and that's like arguably my favorite track on this. He fucking just
yeah
slays that. Like, how'd it
yeah.
feel getting a legend like that to spit over your production, man? Like that must feel like fucking dream. I know you're a
It
real
was
hip
like,
hop
yeah, I
head,
mean,
so.
it took a while, but yeah, like that song, I'm pretty sure there's a second verse like somewhere that was recorded, but I was like, oh, this needs like a feature, and it has to be, but it has to be a good feature. It has to be a feature that like makes people be like, oh fuck, that's cool. Like, so we had a few other people in mind that didn't, it just never happened. But LP was like on the list. He was like, and he was gonna do it, and then like schedule things happened, and then like it like didn't happen, and then I just like the album took forever to come out. So I was like, we still don't have a feature for this song. I'm just gonna go back. It's been like 6 months. Like I'm sure I can ask again, and I asked again, and he did the feature, and it was sent, and I was like, oh, this sounds great to me. I like I like LP, I like Run the Jewels, I like him over soulful stuff as well, which is rare,
Yeah,
because
it is rare. This was like a very unique kind of
yeah,
beat he doesn't usually go
but he
on a.
sounds good over this type of groove. It
Hmm.
doesn't sound out of place. Um, and I think that's what people are reacting to. It's like, oh, like this is like it feels almost like vintage, but it's not. You know, it's like
Yeah.
timeless. It's timeless. But yeah, and then the Conway feature came about pretty easily too. But that was like, um, Conway is featured on the Stove God Cooks Real Bad Man project that never came out. So this is like,
Is that officially not going to come out, or you don't
I mean,
really
it'll
believe
come
in
out
that?
at some point, but like
Yeah.
people know about it. I've played it when I DJ'd, and I did that
Mm,
radio show like the end of last year, and I there's even a video that we made.
mm.
But yeah, he's on the song. He's on a song on there. So like I'd never actually put out anything with Conway, even though it was recorded in like 2020 or something,
Mm.
like the Stove God feature. But yeah, so um yeah, I wanted to use features sparingly. I wanted them to be impactful. I like whenever I line one up, I'll like text Boldy and be like, "Hey, are you cool with this? Like, this is who I think." Yeah, the Conway one was cool.
Yeah. And looking forward now, what are so you mentioned so like this Toby record. Is there
Yeah.
anything else music wise or even not music wise that your fans should be looking out for?
Well, after Toby, there's an album with Genevieve who I had Pollen with, so it's like an all, it's
Oh,
like an
cool.
all sung record. And it's been done for a while, and it's like one of those. It's a record that I've had that I didn't know what to do with because like we had Pollen was done, and then we recorded this next one kind of as I was starting Real Bad Man. Um, and I was like, oh, I've put out Boldy and Siifu, and like it's very rap. Like
Mm-hmm.
it would be weird if on my third project I threw out this like record with Genevieve. It would like
It
confuse.
would, yeah, I think that was a good
So
point.
I've
Yeah.
been waiting for like the right moment, and I feel like the transitional moment is like Toby, because um it's like it's a rap record because he's rapping, but there's songs that where he's singing the whole thing or where he's singing the hook, and I feel like I've like sort of expanded what my sound is. I think a lot of people um, probably aren't familiar with me. They're familiar with like the Boldy records or like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I've heard that name, but like, the Pollen records, like we had songs with like choirs and like horn sections, and so like I know how to make and I know how to put together an album with like a concept. Not everyone has to like it, but I know how to do it, and I
Mm-hmm.
know how to do it where like I like it. And so I think there's a Genevieve record, the Toby record, Genevieve record, and then that'll be then maybe something. There might be a hole like towards the end of the year, um, that I might like. I don't know. I'm trying to slowly finish on High Alert Volume 5. So I've been like I have a bunch of songs for it. I'm just trying to find the right like blend of like you know cool songs and like songs with like bigger features and just I don't know. I'm also trying to clear my plate, meaning like there's records that I have that are like half finished or like
Mm.
they're mixed or they're not mixed yet. They're not at the mix stages yet. And I did this thing. It was with this year. I have so many records coming out because I was like I hadn't been able to clear my plate. I was always just like moving, moving, moving. So um, I have two albums that I'm finishing like that'll be done by the end of this year for next year. And then after that, I have nothing like that's like in the works as of right now. Which
Can you say anything more about those two other albums?
one's a Rome Streets project, which I played a little on the radio show, and then the other one's with Fly Anakin.
Oh yeah, yeah. Flanagan mentioned it when he was
Yeah.
on that you guys were
So
working on that. That's
yeah, yeah.
exciting.
And then those two, and then there's a few other projects that are like in various stages, but those will be like probably the first two for next year, and then I don't really have anything like that I've started yet. I have a few. There's a few things where I'm like talking with people and been like, oh, like we should try to do something. So if that happens, those will be like the other two for next year. But I do want to do more stuff in the Toby Genevieve world of not rap, like the
Mm-hmm.
world of um like a weird in between of like blending genres where like singers and music people, um musicians, singers, and then some rappers on it. The Genevieve record has Pink Siifu on it, but like that's the only like rapper.
Yeah, no,
Any of
there's some artists that I can I'm like can't think of them on the top of my head, but there are artists that I think are kind of might fit the bill. I might send them your way.
Cool. Yeah, yeah,
Because like I really am fascinated to see like your beats definitely your instrumental kind of vision has so much potential to do more outside of just rap, and I think
yeah,
that'd be pretty exciting as well. Obviously rap's my go-to, so I'm excited for what you do with
yeah. I
rap too,
mean,
but that would be
rap was
really
my
cool.
first love, so like I go back to it, and there's something about like rap music that like no other music can express.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's like a feeling you feel when you hear that song. Um, and yeah, but I do want to I want to do more than just you know uh sort of more under I want to do more than just underground rap. Like I
Hmm.
want to sort of expand, because I did this back and forth with Pollen, and I don't know. It's like every couple of years I get that itch to like do something that involves like live stuff, and so but yeah, but the Fly Anakin and the Rome Streets records are like pretty like cool, straightforward, like not a lot of live stuff on those.
Yeah, those are gonna be fucking sick. Those are definitely gonna be sick.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, no, I mean, I just have to say, like, again, I really appreciate, the time today, and also I just respect the way that you approach the art from that album standpoint, really kind of put together these packages. I appreciate those details because it really makes an impression on people. It made an impression on me, and it's really fascinating to hear your background too, because it all kind of starts to make way much more sense now. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, no wonder all of these finer details, the way it's presented, is so clearly thought out
Yeah.
and curated in a way that's very intentional. Like now I
Yeah.
see it, and yeah, this is a really interesting conversation.
Cool, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks again, and everybody check out Conversational Pieces just out, and as well as any of the other records that Real Bad Man's put out in the past. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to not only support the show, but join the fastest growing community of like-minded indie rap fans, go to patreon.com, search for the Rap Music Plug podcast, and become a patron. You will gain access to an exclusive patron-only Discord that me and 70 plus people engage with on the regular, as well as other patron-only benefits such as bonus episodes, album recommendation reviews, early access to regular episodes, and much more. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.